From the western home of spring training baseball, this is Brad Cesmat's Baseball AZ.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome on into today's show. We're at the Phoenix Art Museum on this week's adventure, and you're thinking the Art Museum, Brad, this is supposed to be a baseball show. Well, there's a card collection here on display that just went up here at the Art Museum that features Honus Wagner, Jackie Robinson. It's one of the rarest of rarest card collections. You'll definitely want to stop in and check it out when you're out here for spring training. Coming up on today's show, Sports Illustrated's Tom Verducci on the great game of baseball. He's one of the leading voices as we look towards the coming season. The owner of the Arizona Diamondbacks, Kendrick, has an extraordinarily rare baseball card collection on display at the Phoenix Art Museum. You'll want to check that out. You'll hear from Royals manager Ned Yost, the defending champs. You'll hear from their skipper, Diamondbacks manager Chip Hale. We'll take you to places to see and eat around the state, including the Arizona Renaissance Festival, and a great place to get some grub, the thumb. As always, you'll hear from Commissioner Rob Manfred. That's all straight ahead, but we start off today's show, our conversation with Sports Illustrated's Tom Verducci. Let's talk baseball now for a couple of minutes. Tom Verducci, Emmy Award winner, Sports Illustrated, SI.com, with Brad Cesmat, all things around not just the Cactus League, but also the Grapefruit Circuit and around baseball as well. If I had told you back at the start of spring training, Tom, that Bryce Harper and Goose Gossage would be pushing the NFL and the NBA off to the margins in terms of conversation nationally about the sport, would you have bought into that? And just what do you make out of the whole thing?
Yeah, I would not have bet on that. And it really shows you that there's a culture clash going on in baseball, old school, new school. There's no question about it. I think it is kind of an awkward time in baseball, and that the way guys play the game has changed. I think it's for the better, to be honest with you. The more emotion we get to see in a game, I think is better. I wouldn't go as far as to condone guys who try to show up the opponent, really stick it in their face or come up with some of these antics that are geared towards antagonizing the other team. But to flip a bat after you hit a home run, to show emotion after you strike somebody out, I think it's a great thing. And I think the game is moving in that direction, and the people who grew up with a different game are having a very difficult time with it.
A couple other questions before we let Tom Verducci go. Here in the Cactus League, any reason in your mind that the Royals cannot repeat?
No, there's not, other than the fact that it's just so hard to do historically.
Right.
It's going back to those Yankee teams, it hasn't been done. But other than that, no, because this is a team that, the word culture is overused a lot in sports, but I look at what Kansas City has now, and they have a well-defined, well-established culture. They know exactly who they are. That is not a star-driven team. That is a team driven by athleticism, by defense, by an incredible bullpen, and, the best players on the team, people like Alex Gordon and Mike Moustakas and Eric Hosmer, they've been playing together a really long time, and in this day and age, you don't see a whole lot of that. So they have that undefinable or unquantifiable thing we call chemistry. And, yeah, I think the way they play baseball is something that's sustainable. In a game where we have a ton of strikeouts, they put the ball in play. In a game where specialized relief pitching has become more and more important, they probably have the deepest bullpen in all of baseball. So they have things, I think, that really play well, not just in the regular season, but especially in the postseason. And you've seen that the last 2 years. They've been 23-8 in the postseason the last 2 years. That's not a mirage. I know Billy Beane says the playoffs are a crapshoot, but I just like the way this team plays baseball, especially when they go up against really good pitching, because they do put the ball in play. So, yeah, listen, I think the only thing holding them back from saying, no, they can't win is just it's so darn hard based on recent history.
Over at Texas, AL West title a year ago, any reason to believe they can't do that?
I'm glad you brought them up, because I think Texas is a team that is one of the strongest teams in the American League. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw an ALCS of Texas and Kansas City, or I'll throw Houston in there as well, which has a ton of talent. But Texas should be getting Yu Darvish back in the middle to late part of May, and that's a pretty dynamic 1-2 combination when you've got Cole Hamels and Yu Darvish, and they have a lot of offense. And I think the key for me looking at Texas as I went through their camp is they have a lot of really good, I don't even want to call them prospects, but young players who may not be in the starting lineup as we stand here today, but will get folded in as we go throughout the season, whether that's a Joey Gallo or a Nomar Mazara or a Jurickson Profar who's trying to get healthy for the first time in 3 years. They have really good young players that will contribute to this team, and you're going to need it in the course of the season, but these are not just complementary players. These people can be dynamic impact players. So I like the depth that they have heading into the season.
Two other teams, I'll let you go. Cubs.
Really impressed with the Cubs last year, but actually even more so this year. It's a very confident team. The fact that guys like Chris Bryant, Kyle Schwarber, Addison Russell, young players all got not just experience, but meaningful game experience in a pennant race and then in the postseason. I really like that about this team. They have a lot of guys who are just getting into their best years. I think it's going to be a very dynamic offensive team. And John Lackey, I think, was a great sign for them as a solid number 3 in that rotation. Yeah, he's got some age on him, but he's actually been better the last few years after Tommy John's surgery. So, to me, there's nothing not to like about the Cubs. I look at their roster, and if you could give me the pick of any of the 30 rosters right now, I'm talking about 1 through 40, I would take the Cubs. I think they're a team that should win about 95 games, maybe some more. But on paper, I think going in, they have the best team in baseball.
Lastly, what do you make out of what's going on out here in Arizona with the Diamondbacks? You put all the money into Greinke. You have these Hall of Famers throughout their organization, from La Russa to Randy Johnson to many, many others that are helping out with the team. What do you make out of what's going on here in Arizona?
Well, I'll go back to what I said about Kansas City, where they have an established culture. The D-backs are trying to establish their culture. You can't get it until you have some stability. You know, the manager, Chip Hale, there for a second year now and extended now. The way they play is admirable because of really Paul Goldschmidt sets the tone. He's such a hard-working, humble player. Now they have to just have some success on their side to really cement that kind of culture. Can they do it? You know, on paper, I think the D-backs are probably about an 85, 86 win team that puts them right in the wild card mix. So their season may come down to, you know, are there a couple of position players, whether it's a Jake Lamb or a Yasmani Tomas or David Peralta, who really break through with bigger seasons, or like we saw the Mets and the Jays do last year, did they really tweak that team and make significant changes at the trade deadline to get them into that upper 80 area where you need to get to be a postseason team, to be at least a wild card team? They've got a lot in their favor. I think going in, though, it's a very tough division. There's no question about it. You know, I talked with one other general manager who said they're an interesting team because it's a team of stars and scrubs. And by that, he meant that there's not a lot of depth, very top-heavy with people like Goldschmidt, Pollock, Greinke, Corbin. But beyond that, their depth will be challenged throughout the season. But if they, as I said, if they have the answers within the roster with some of those young hitters, then yeah, I think they can be a postseason team. But right now, I'd say they're right in the mix, a little bit short of postseason.
Thank you for the time and the insight. Great stuff, Tom, as always.
You got it. Thank you.
As always, we take you around places to see, things to do here in spring training. The Renaissance Festival is one of those. Brandy Aguilar with the story.
Quick show in less than 5 minutes.
If you've never been to the Renaissance Festival, be prepared for a world of experience.
Count Victor the Villain is giving spring training visitors a sneak peek of the 28th Annual Arizona Renaissance Festival. It's located east of Apache Junction on U.S. Highway 60.
There are some 200 different shops with arts and crafts, everything from leather, metal, glass, woodworking, every kind of fantasy art that you might imagine.
Not only are people getting a chance to check out the arts and crafts fair, they can interact with nearly 2,000 16th century characters like Count Victor the Villain, play games, go on rides, and watch live entertainment across 13 stages.
These are performers who have honed their skills throughout the nation, and they bring their acts, live entertainment, a bit of theater, music, merriment about.
Hey, audience! It's time for the Bob Kids song!
And we can't forget about the large feast everyone can munch on throughout the day.
You have the standby, the turkey leg, bread bowls. Here you can find bangers and mash, corned beef and cabbage, shepherd's pie, also crepes, funnel cakes, and every kind of sweet, chocolate-covered this and that. You name it, there is something for every palate to be found here.
A medieval playground that Count Victor the Villain thinks everyone should experience. This is his 17th season with the Arizona Renaissance Festival.
There are people who make it their livelihood to go from festival to festival. They might be selling their wares, they might be stage acts, and then there are a great many people like myself who live here and who come and simply play because it's a fun and a wonderful thing to do.
So if you're looking for something to do in between games, head out to the Arizona Renaissance Festival this weekend. Last chance until next year.
What better place to be than enjoying the outdoors of Arizona, see something unique and interesting that I guarantee, at least as much as a baseball game, you will remember in a month or a year.
Coming up next, one of the rarest baseball card collections in the world is on display here in spring training. Diamondbacks owner Kendrick has that collection. He'll explain. Ned Yost, the manager of the Kansas City Royals, can the defending champs get it done in 2016? Chip Hale, the Diamondbacks skipper, year 2 of the program. Big moves, big expectations in the coming year. We'll take you to the Thumb for some great grub, and you'll hear from Commissioner Rob Manfred as Brad Cesmat's Baseball AZ continues. Welcome back again. We're at the Phoenix Art Museum. This guy looks like he's going to take me apart. It's a beautiful place to be here in downtown Phoenix. Let's take you inside, though. This card collection that Diamondbacks managing general partner Kendrick has put together through the years. Very impressive, guys. You're going to want to check this out when you come out for spring training. This collection that you have, you're very proud of it. You've had it for some time, but you've decided now to put it on display for all to see. Why?
Well, I'm a member of the board at the Art Museum here, and they're doing a program to highlight collections of local collectors. And so they picked me among others to show our collections, which are, you know, I think each case may be different than the standard of what you might see at the Art Museum.
People are going to come out here from Milwaukee and Texas and Kansas City and San Diego. What are they going to see when they walk into your collection?
Well, what I think they'll see is the history of our great game. You know, because these cards go back to more than 100 years in the history of baseball, and most of the cards are Hall of Fame players. Some are original Hall of Fame players. Some are more later year Hall of Famers. And I think many cards from my boyhood collection. Some are my adult collection. Obviously, I wasn't born in 1909. Some might think that, but I wasn't. But the cards from the 50s will be players that are still living. You'll get to see some of your childhood heroes if you're a person of my age. But if you come with a dad or a granddad, you'll get to see their heroes.
And you're going to see some very, very rare cards. Talk about that.
Yeah, the cards are very rare for the most part. These are cards that are, in terms of their quality, which is part of the collecting world, cards are graded as to quality. And so my approach to collecting has been to try to obtain the highest caliber card for each player. And so some are the only card in the world that exists of that player at this grade. And in most cases, there are only 2 or 3 that exist in the world. So they'll be rare.
And you go through a couple of those that they've got to see.
Yeah, well, of course, the Honus Wagner card is the holy grail of baseball cards. From more than 100 years ago in 1909 is the most famous of all baseball cards. Actually, a card from 1952 is the second most famous, and it's a Mickey Mantle card. When Mantle was just first starting, it was his first full year as a baseball player. And the cards from that year were a beautiful set of cards, one of the most spectacular sets, 60-some years ago, and the Mantle card is there. There's a couple of interesting cards that I find interesting, at least. One, Babe Ruth card as a pitcher, when Babe was a pitcher before he became the great home run hitter that he ultimately became, and he was a Boston Red Sox. There's the Jackie Robinson rookie card. So the first ever Jackie Robinson card is in the collection, and obviously we all know how important he has been and was to our game. And so there's a lot of things that if fans would come and see, they would find interesting.
And one last question on that, the Wagner card, you've been asked it repeatedly, but for those that are coming in from across the country to see your collection, how did you acquire it?
Well, it was my good fortune to have some connections in California with card dealers that I work with regularly, and got a call out of the blue one day. This one gentleman I work with, knew of the collection that I had and what I was trying to achieve, and a gentleman in California who I never met actually had the card and had made a decision purely on his own that he would consider a sale and let this dealer know. And the dealer called me and said, "Hey, Ken, are you interested?" and I announced that I was, and then a little bit of good old horse trading occurred, and ultimately I was able, over about a 2-week period from the first call to actually owning the card.
The defending World Series champs have been back to work out in surprise over the last month. I spoke with Royals manager Ned Yost about the under-the-radar players this spring who could play a big role in their attempt to repeat this coming season.
Oh, there's a lot of guys. Travis Snyder, Dylan G. I'm anxious to see Bubba Starling and Mondesi to see how much they've improved over the course of a year. Our core players are who they are, but I'm anxious to see Ray Fuentes compete for a job, Paulo Orlando, Gerard Dyson, Christian Colon. There's a lot of storylines that are going to be interesting to the Kansas City fans and the Kansas City Royals to see how things play out. Oh, just excitement, Our fans, we've got great fans in Kansas City, and I don't think there's many tickets to be had left to our games, because we do have a lot of people traveling down from Kansas City to enjoy kind of a more laid-back atmosphere in spring training in a beautiful facility like Surprise. So, just being out there with our fans and getting to play baseball games is fun.
Up next, Arizona Diamondbacks skipper Chip Hale on his team in this coming season. Hey, have you dropped into the Thumb? You'll want to do that for some great grub when you come out to spring training. And we'll hear from Commissioner Rob Manfred as Brad Cesmat's Baseball AZ continues after this timeout. And before we wrap up this week's episode, Commissioner Rob Manfred, again taking a look at the great game of baseball with opening day in just a couple of weeks.
Well, let me say a couple of things. We have for many years provided cessation support to major league players who have a habit with respect to cut tobacco or chewing tobacco. Given the passage of ordinances in a number of municipalities, we thought it was important to reemphasize and step up those efforts so that players have the help they may desire in terms of dealing with the habit. Look, with respect to the legalities, major league players are citizens like any other citizens. And, municipalities pass laws. We expect that our players will comply with those laws.
From the commissioner to the Arizona Diamondbacks, big moves bring big expectations for Diamondback skipper Chip Hale. The identity of this year's team has to take hold. The skipper on what he will need to see out of his team to make sure they get it done in 2016.
It is, and we talked about, being the most fundamentally sound team. That's something we want to do, and how do you do it? You do it by doing every drill like it's your last drill you're ever going to do. If you're taking ground balls, you want to put yourself in the game somehow. If you're taking comebackers, it's the ninth inning, bases loaded, comebacker, I'm going to throw the ball home. And everything you do with a purpose. So yeah, there's no doubt about it. Keeping it simple, baseball is a very simple game if you let it be, and it can be very confusing. And a lot of times we try to confuse ourselves too much.
From there, I know you get hungry when you're out here at Cactus League action. If you're coming on in, you'll want to drop in on this place, the Thumb.
When you drive by on the street, really, we look like a car wash or a gas station. But when you walk through the front door, it's a new experience altogether. Our namesake is from the Thumb, Tom's Thumb, which is a trailhead over here on McNell Mountain Range, but we've changed the name into the Thumb.
The Thumb, formerly known as Tom's Thumb Fresh Market, is a one-stop shop for spring training visitors in Scottsdale. Bill Cagle is the assistant manager.
They can experience a one-stop shop of everything, from the gas station to the car wash to gifts inside, beer, wine, great barbecue, great bakery, coffee in the morning, breakfast, lunch and dinner all day. We're probably known for our brisket. We smoke our meats anywhere from 12 to 14 hours the night before, so our meats are coming out very soft, very tender, very pull-apart, delicious. But beyond that, we're probably known for our Tom's brisket stack, which is really our signature dish. It's a cheesy homemade hash browns, sliced brisket, chipotle ole sauce, over easy egg garnished with green onions.
Some other hot items on the menu, the Thumb's 8 barbecue sauces.
We go from the hottest index, which is our XXX, to what we call our infant, our starter, which is our hickory.
The coffee and baked goods are also a fan favorite.
We have a bakery in-house on premise, and our bakers are very, very talented, and they do baked goods every day.
Customers can even purchase beer, wine, and let's not forget about those unique gifts.
Anything from somebody who's a horse enthusiast to somebody who's a barbecue enthusiast to somebody who is a wine enthusiast, so everything in between. If you're in town for spring training, why you should make a stop here is because, number one, we got great barbecue, you're going to be hungry, and instead of eating those hot dogs at the game, come down here and get some great pulled pork sandwiches or some brisket sandwiches. Secondly, we're very close. Salt River Field is right up the street. We're a stone's throw away or a ball throw away.
And that's our show for this week. Thanks again for being with us. We'll see you next time on Brad Cesmat's Baseball AZ.